Hello, this is Breakfast with Rachel Burden and Charlie State.
Doctors are calling for an urgent review into how long people are waiting to receive the second dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine.
Yes, the jab was approved with a gap of 3 weeks between doses, but this was later changed by the government to 12 weeks in order to allow as many people as possible to be vaccinated.
Well, now the British Medical Association has written to the government's chief medical advisor, Professor Chris Whitty, urging him to review the policy.
Well, Dr. Chaand Nagpaul is chair of the BMA and joins us now. Very good morning to you, Doctor. What are the grounds for your concerns?
Well, we share the same aim as a chief medical officer to protect the nation, to protect healthcare workers. Our concern is that the UK's position is unique internationally. The World Health Organization has analysed through its experts the delay of the second dose, and what they have said is that they recommend the dose being given according to the manufacturer's recommendation of 3 to 4 weeks, but in exceptional circumstances to be able to delay that for up to 42 days. The 42 days because the Pfizer's own trial data extends to 42 days. So what we're saying is that the UK should adopt this best practice based upon expert international opinion. Now, every nation most nations in the world are facing similar challenges to the UK in having limited vaccine supplies and also wanting to protect their population maximally. No other nation has adopted the UK's approach. We think that the flexibility that the World Health Organization offers to 42 days is being stretched far too much to go from 6 weeks right through to 12 weeks. The Chief Medical Association and those across the 4 nations believe that this is still going to provide protection based on an extrapolation of data. We don't have that data, and there have been growing concerns about how effective the vaccine really will be continuing from 6 to 12 weeks. What we're saying is that we should be following the guidance that is being adopted by the WHO and follow that in order to maximize the protection of the population, but also healthcare staff. And remember, we are at the moment in a lockdown. So we're not seeing people mixing. The majority of the population are staying at home. But I represent doctors who are, of course, very worried about their personal protection. And in order to be able to be well enough to be at work, we've got about 50,000 NHS staff at the moment off the front line at home, sick with COVID symptoms or self-isolating. So there is a very real issue that we want to be sure that everyone is protected maximally.
Can you just try and break this down for us a little bit, and as best you can in layman's terms as well? So the government's notion is that it can be up to 12 weeks. I mean, pick a point, say 10 weeks in, which I know you don't think is right. What level of protection do you think would be in place at that period of time?
Yeah, that's the whole point, that none of us actually know. What we do know is that the data...
Well, we know there is some protection, don't we? We know there is some protection.
Yeah. What we do know is that there's protection at 6 weeks. That is that the data extends to 6 weeks. And what we also know is that the World Health Organization looked at the data and had a group of experts looking at how long the second dose could be delayed in order to provide adequate protection, and they have suggested that 6 weeks should be the maximum. So we know that up to 6 weeks there is data to support protection with the second dose. Now, obviously, the protection will not vanish after 6 weeks, but what we do not know is what level of protection will be offered. Now, in the context of a highly transmissible virus, what we believe is we should not be extrapolating data when we don't have it, and we should work in accordance, not just with the data, but in accordance with expert international opinion. So yes, you're right, we don't know, but what we do know is that extending it up to 6 weeks will confer protection in order to then give the second dose to maximize protection. The other thing to say is that we know that supplies of the Pfizer vaccine are going to be unpredictable. Pfizer themselves have announced reductions in supplies. So many doctors are telling us they are worried whether in 12 weeks they will have the supplies to be able to receive the second dose of the Pfizer vaccine. The one thing we do not want to see is having mixing of vaccines. That has got no international support from scientists. And so whilst we do have these supplies, there's every reason to want to make sure that people can receive the second dose with the same vaccine.
Doctor, I mean, the harsh reality here, though, is that if the government followed what you're saying and left it to 12 weeks, you would then be having to tell some people that they weren't going to get the vaccine as soon as they thought they would. That's the inevitable consequence, isn't it? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't have it the 2 doses in a shorter space of time and vaccinate the same number of people in the same time, given the success, and it's deemed to be a success of the rollout so far. Those 2 things can't happen at once. So you'll be telling people you are going to have to wait longer for the vaccine. That would be inevitably the result.
Yes, I do understand the trade-off and the rationale. But if that was obviously the right thing to do, then we would see other nations following suit. There are many nations with large numbers of people dying and being hospitalized. They have those pressures. They have not taken this decision. And what we're saying is the government needs to, and the purpose for writing the chief medical officer was to justify why we have taken this stance. Now, the other thing to say is we have vaccinated over 5 million people. That is more than every other European nation added together. So in fact, if we were to give the second vaccine at 6 weeks, it's not that we would be trailing the rest of the world. And even the extension from 3 weeks to the maximum of 6 weeks recommended by the World Health Organization would still double the number of people being able to receive the vaccine. So it's not that you're actually restricting it in any significant way. And it's only about the Pfizer vaccine. We don't have the concerns for the AstraZeneca vaccine, where the manufacturer has already said that a delay of up to 12 weeks is acceptable. So we don't think this will have a major impact. But what it will also do, of course, is that by having people vaccinated by up to 42 days, it will free up new appointments that they would have occupied in 12 weeks.
OK, Doctor,
so
can I ask just one?
As time goes on, people will be vaccinated.
OK, one last thought. And if you could briefly, I know there's a lot to go through here. What's the worst possible result of what you think the government is doing? And again, in layman's terms, what does that look like? If you're saying there's a problem, what's the result?
So I think the worry we have is that by extending it to 12 weeks, and especially beyond 6 weeks, where we don't have the data, if the vaccine's efficacy is reduced, and one of the concerns people have is whether the transmissibility of the virus is not going to be as effective, because a second dose is thought to maximize a reduction in transmissibility. That's not been proven, but that's what's been suggested. Then, of course, the risk is that we will see those who are exposed to the virus maximally, healthcare workers who are looking after patients with COVID, with a highly transmissible virus, may get infected. The other worry we, of course, have is members of the population may not be optimally protected, those who are at highest risk. That is our concern.
Okay.
Now, we're not saying, as I've said before, that the vaccine will not have any efficacy, but given the highly transmissible variant, we want to optimize and maximize the protection for those who are at highest risk. I think that is our concern.
All right. I really appreciate you taking us through that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. Your response to that, very welcome at BBC Breakfast. As Charlie said, much more to come on the vaccines. Any questions you have, you can get in touch with us here this morning. But let's talk sport now. Mike is here and